Welcome to Mind Research Rewired. We unveil scientific truths to transform confusion into clear thinking. Unlock a sharper, more effective you based on proven research. Subscribe now and elevate your life.
What if the exact psychological traits that would, get you diagnosed with a behavioral disorder in a clinical setting are actually the literal biological weapons you need to build a multi-million-dollar company?
I mean, that is the uncomfortable question that most traditional business schools just completely avoid, because we are conditioned to believe that the ideal founder is this flawless, stoic architect, someone who never loses their cool and executes a 10-year plan with surgical precision. But the data tells a vastly different story.
A completely different story.
Yeah.
And that sterile corporate myth is exactly what we are dismantling today. Because look, if you are listening to this, you're probably deep in the trenches of building a venture right now. You are managing the absolute chaos of scaling a brand, or maybe navigating a complex technical build, or constantly tweaking your business model just to survive the quarter.
Right. It's a grind.
Yeah. And you already know your reality does not look like a perfectly organized whiteboard. It is messy. It's frantic. And today, we're going to validate that chaos using hard academic science. We are plunging into a massive deep dive on a psychological review called Advancing the Psychology of Entrepreneurship. This is by Marjan Georgievsky and Uday Stefan from the journal Applied Psychology.
It's a phenomenal paper.
It really is. And our mission today is to fundamentally rewire how you view your own entrepreneurial mindset. We're bypassing all the usual Silicon Valley fluff, the morning routines, the ice baths, all of it.
Yeah, let's leave the ice baths alone for today, because we have to begin by tearing down that perfect founder myth at the foundational level, which is personality. For decades, researchers tried to map standard, broad personality traits onto entrepreneurial success. So they were looking at the famous Big Five.
Right, like extroversion, agreeableness, openness, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. They wanted to see if general extroversion predicted who would build a great company.
Which, that feels intuitive on the surface, right? You just assume a successful founder needs to be extroverted to pitch investors or, open to new experiences to innovate. But those broad categories always felt a bit too much like reading a horoscope to me.
Oh, 100%.
They just lack the resolution you need when you're making actual high-stakes decisions.
And the research bears your skepticism out completely. The data demonstrates that those broad Big Five traits are actually incredibly weak predictors of business creation and performance. The real drivers are what psychologists term narrow traits.
Narrow traits.
Yeah. So we are looking at hyper-specific, localized characteristics. Things like extreme self-efficacy, relentless achievement motivation, and a highly proactive personality. A general disposition toward being outgoing doesn't launch a product, An aggressive, proactive orientation toward immediate action, that does.
Okay, let me push back on this a little bit, or at least, let me play devil's advocate here. I can see how extreme motivation is a positive trait. But what about the founders who operate in a state of constant scattered obsession? Because society, and certainly your traditional corporate HR departments, they tell those people that they're broken.
Right. They don't fit the mold.
Exactly. Yeah. They can't sit still in a meeting. They jump from product feature to product feature, and they seem totally incapable of maintaining a linear thought process. Are we just, glorifying bad management here?
Well, the clinical psychology framework would absolutely agree with your corporate HR department. In a standard 9-to-5 environment, those behaviors are categorized as dark side trait, or literally a disorder. But what's fascinating here is the source material highlights a paradigm-shifting study by Thurek and colleagues regarding ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, they documented a strong positive link between ADHD symptoms and the entrepreneurial orientation of small firm owners.
Wait, really? So the very neurochemistry that gets you reprimanded in a cubicle is actually the engine driving a startup forward?
Exactly.
How does that actually work mechanically, in the brain?
It comes down to the neurobiology of dopamine-seeking behavior. A traditional corporate job relies on structured, predictable routines, right? Which completely understimulates a brain with ADHD traits. But a startup is an unstructured, high-risk environment. It demands an exceptionally high tolerance for uncertainty. It requires an ability to hyper-focus on immediate existential crises and a constant drive for novel stimulation.
That makes so much sense.
Right. So what a clinician labels as hyperactivity or distractibility often translates in the market as rapid context switching. It is a biological drive that aligns flawlessly with the chaotic, pivot-heavy reality of early-stage venture building.
I mean, just think about the physical reality of, say, an apparel designer trying to launch an independent label. To the outside world, their day looks like a total disaster. At 9 a.m., they're obsessing over the tensile strength of some fabric they sourced from Italy. And then by 11 a.m., they've abandoned that to frantically rewrite their entire TikTok marketing strategy because they noticed some random micro-trend. By 2 p.m., they are tearing apart a design they approved literally yesterday. A rigid corporate competitor views that as a massive lack of discipline.
Because they have a 6-month approval pipeline just to change a t-shirt color.
Exactly. But our designers' so-called scattered cognition is precisely what allows them to sense a cultural shift and pivot their entire production line in 3 weeks, completely outmaneuvering the slow-moving corporation.
That speed is the ultimate competitive advantage. The chaotic energy is not a bug in their operating system, it is the core feature. But this brings us to a really critical inflection point in the research. Because if these innate chaotic traits push someone to start a business, the natural psychological goal they are chasing is almost always autonomy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They want to be the one calling the shots.
Right.
That is the dream, isn't it? Every founder quits their job because they refuse to have a boss anymore. But knowing what we know about how founders actually interact with the world, that dream of total uncompromised independence, it has to be a mirage. I mean, you can't scale a business in a vacuum.
It is entirely a mirage. And the research provides a qualitative study by Van Gelderen that explores this exact dynamic. The hard truth detailed in the paper is that simply incorporating a business does not magically grant you autonomy.
Right.
Autonomy is not a passive state you achieve just by walking out of your old office. It must be actively constructed, fiercely negotiated, and crucially, sometimes strategically sacrificed.
Oof. That word sacrificed is going to sting for the listener. I mean, you grind for years, you take on immense personal financial risk, you literally weaponize your own neurochemistry just to escape the corporate hierarchy, only to find out you have to surrender your autonomy to venture capitalists or demanding early adopter customers or supply chain gatekeepers.
The sting is very real, but clinging stubbornly to total independence on every single decision is the fastest way to plateau a business. You have to navigate those gatekeepers. And the brilliant part of this research, specifically a study by Sushta and colleagues on crowdfunding and investment pitching, it shows us exactly how to win over those gatekeepers when you are forced to compromise.
Okay, I love this.
Because it turns out investors are rarely evaluating the objective mathematical quality of your business opportunity.
Wait. They are evaluating the psychology of the person presenting the opportunity, right?
Yes.
So how are they making the decision if not based on the raw metrics in the spreadsheets?
The experiment revealed that investor decisions are heavily manipulated by social information cues that trigger their own regulatory focus.
Regulatory focus. Break that down.
So regulatory focus theory dictates that people generally operate in one of two states. They are either promotion-focused, meaning they're playing to win, seeking out gains, growth, ideals, or they are prevention-focused, meaning they're playing not to lose. They're fixated on safety, duties, and risk mitigation.
Oh, wow. Okay, to make this hyper-tactical, it is exactly like selling a car.
Yes, great example.
If a customer walks onto the lot, and they are promotion-focused, they want to feel the dopamine of the purchase. You talk to them about the 0 to 60 speed, the horsepower, the leather interior, and how it will make them look. But if a customer walks on a lot and they're prevention-focused, they're basically operating on cortisol and anxiety.
Exactly.
If you pitch them the top speed, you terrify them. You have to pivot immediately and pitch the crash test safety ratings, the anti-lock brakes, the extended warranty.
That is a flawless translation of the psychology. Now, just apply that car lot dynamic to a high-stakes pitch for seed funding.
Okay, so you walk into the boardroom with your server architecture diagrams and your user acquisition projections. If the grant committee or the angel investor sitting across from you is prevention-focused, maybe the market is down or, I don't know, they recently lost money on a bad bet and you start aggressively pitching $1 billion limitless upside unicorn vision, they will mentally check out.
They will completely shut down because you become a threat to their safety.
Right. You have to dynamically read the room and frame your entire pitch around risk mitigation. You highlight the guaranteed milestones, the secured patents, the downside protection.
You are intentionally tailoring your social cues to mirror their psychological state. Conversely, if you sit down with a promotion-focused venture capitalist who is absolutely desperate to fund the next industry disruptor, and you spend your 40 minutes explaining how safe and conservative your growth model is, you'll bore them to tears.
They'll just fall asleep.
Basically, yeah. You must trigger their desire for exponential gains. That adaptation choosing to alter your vision to appease their worldview is the strategic sacrifice of autonomy we mentioned earlier. You trade a momentary piece of your independence to secure the literal fuel your business needs to survive.
But I gotta say, playing that chameleon role requires a massive amount of cognitive load.
Yeah.
You are suppressing your natural drive, you're constantly adapting your personality to investors, all while managing the daily chaos of the actual business. This inevitably leads to the psychological strain of the founder's journey. So what is this constant friction doing to the founder biologically?
It creates a highly toxic internal environment if it's left unmanaged. The research points to the job demands control support model. This was an experience sampling study by Totterdell and colleagues. They tracked founders in real time and proved that severe psychological strain spikes specifically during periods of high demand combined with low control.
Which, let's be real, describes the permanent state of an early-stage startup.
Pretty much.
You have endless demands from customers and zero control over macroeconomic factors or, like, server uptimes.
That combination is incredibly potent. And a 4-year longitudinal study by Cardin and Patel uncovered a staggering reality about this specific strain. Tracking founders over those 4 years, they found that higher chronic stress levels predicted higher income, while simultaneously predicting significant increases in physical health complaints.
Oh, man. A literal, measurable health-wealth trade-off.
Yes.
The very stress that is fueling their financial performance is simultaneously degrading their cardiovascular system or their immune system. That is a terrifying reality for anyone listening. We have to figure out how to weaponize this biological reality. How do we harness that stress without letting it just destroy us?
The answer lies in the effect infusion model. The researchers highlight a truly fascinating daily diary study by Fu, Uy, and Barron. They tracked 46 entrepreneurs every single day for 46 days, measuring how their daily mood, their effect, biologically infused their cognitive effort. And the findings completely shatter the toxic good vibes only hustle culture.
Okay, unpack the mechanism for me here. How does a mood literally change the way a founder works?
It comes down to evolutionary biology. The study found that negative affect feelings of acute stress, anxiety, or anger actually predicts extreme, hyper-focused effort on immediate, required tasks.
Interesting.
Right. When you experience negative emotion, your brain interprets it as a threat in your immediate environment. Neurologically, your system releases cortisol and adrenaline, which quite literally narrows your attentional spotlight. You get tunnel vision so you can neutralize the threat. On the flip side, positive affect joy, optimism, relaxation that signals to the brain that the environment is safe.
Okay, so you can broaden out.
Exactly. This allows your cognitive networks to broaden, facilitating heuristic processing, associative thinking, and effort toward long-term visionary goals.
That makes total sense. Think about a catastrophic software failure. It's launch day for your SaaS platform, thousands of new users hit the server, and the entire system just crashes. Your phone is exploding with angry messages on Slack or whatever.
Yeah.
You are experiencing maximum demand and zero control.
Yep.
You are floated with stress, anger, and negative affect. What the science is proving here is that you shouldn't try to take a deep breath and find your zen, right? That burning negative neurochemistry is the exact evolutionary tool you need to sit at your laptop, deploy that cognitive tunnel vision, and stay awake until 4 a.m. rewriting the broken code.
Precisely. Your negative emotion is a tactical, highly localized weapon for immediate survival.
But the danger is misapplying that weapon. You cannot use that same 4 a.m. cortisol-drenched brain to sit down the next morning and outline your 3-year product roadmap.
No, absolutely not.
Your optic nerve and your cognitive networks are physically too narrowed to see the big picture. You're going to make defensive, small-minded strategic choices. You have to intentionally schedule your visionary big-picture strategy work for the days you wake up with high positive affect when your brain is chemically primed to see expansive connections.
Emotional regulation, in the context of entrepreneurship, isn't about forcing a smile when the server crashes. It is about clinically matching your current neurochemical state to the correct category of task.
Man, that is so powerful. Yeah. So you've mastered your own neurochemistry. You've learned how to manipulate investor psychology through regulatory focus.
Yeah.
You understand the biological mechanisms of your own stress. You might think you were bulletproof at this point.
You'd think so, yeah.
But this deep dive doesn't stop at the individual. We have to address the macro environment, because you can do everything perfectly right internally and still get crushed by the physical world.
The external context is the ultimate reality check for any founder. The researchers included a secondary analysis of nation-level data by Van de Vliert, Janssen, and Van der Vecht, focusing on what they term climato-economic environments.
Okay, climato-economic.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the literal intersection of local weather and regional economics.
Precisely. They analyzed massive data sets and proved that harsh physical climates, specifically regions with significantly colder than average winters or hotter than average summers, when combined with a local environment of low-income resources, actively aggravate a founder's psychological perception of startup difficulty.
Now, I want to push back on this just a bit because it kind of sounds like we are giving founders an excuse.
How so?
Well, are we telling ambitious people that if they live in a harsh climate with a poor local economy, their grit and proactive mindset are suddenly useless? Like, oh, it's snowing outside, so my zip code dictates my success more than my work ethic.
No, it doesn't render their grit useless, but it fundamentally demands that the application of their grit must change. Harsh weather combined with poverty is an existential threat. It threatens baseline human needs for thermal comfort, health, nutrition. The physical environment literally alters the human psychological appraisal of risk.
So how does a founder actually alter their behavior to survive that? Like, what is the mechanism of adaptation here?
They have to physically restructure their business model. You cannot rely on fragile, just-in-time physical supply chains if your region is prone to severe blizzards and lacks the infrastructure to clear the roads. A proactive founder in that environment doesn't just hustle harder to try and push a delivery truck through the snow.
Right, that's just a waste of energy.
Exactly. They adapt by building digital products or decentralized service businesses that are entirely immune to local weather disruptions.
Which ties perfectly into that study by Rooks and colleagues on entrepreneurs in Uganda, where they compared urban versus rural locations.
Yes, exactly. That study proved that a founder's physical location directly moderates how effective their proactive personality actually is. The exact same level of innate hustle yields vastly different financial outcomes depending on the local constraints. This introduces the most critical framework of the macro section, which they call the triple fit.
Okay, break down the triple fit for us.
Startup success is not a solo endeavor. It requires the alignment of three distinct elements. First, the individual founder's psychology. Second, the specific type of business model they are deploying. And third, the macro context, the climato-economic reality that they are embedded within.
So to synthesize this for the listener, if your business is bleeding cash right now, it might not be a failure of your intelligence or your drive. You might simply be misaligned within the triple fit. You might be trying to force a resource-heavy, physical product business in an environment that only supports lean digital services. You have to adapt the architecture of your business to the unyielding reality of the climate and economy you are standing in, rather than stubbornly trying to out-hustle a blizzard.
Working with the reality of your context is the absolute hallmark of a mature entrepreneur. Blindly fighting it is how you burn through your capital and your health.
I love that. All right, we have unpacked a tremendous amount of academic theory today, from ADHD neurochemistry to climato-economic survival. But the core ethos of this deep dive is immediate actionability. We did not leave you with passive knowledge. We are transitioning this science into physical execution right now. Here are 3 hyper-tactical actions you can deploy into your business the moment this audio ends.
Action number 1 is the affect task audit. Stop fighting your neurochemistry. Look at your daily operational to-do list right now. If you are experiencing high negative affect today, you know you are stressed, your cortisol is peaking, you're angry about a supplier mistake. Do not attempt to brainstorm your Q4 marketing strategy.
Because your brain is biologically incapable of expansive thought right now.
Exactly. Instead, weaponize that tunnel vision. Attack the immediate firefighting tasks. Crush the bug fixes, audit your expenses, answer the difficult emails, clear the operational one-way so that when a day of high positive affect arrives, you actually have the bandwidth to dream.
Boom. Action number 2, the pitch mirroring protocol. Before you step into your next stakeholder meeting, or even before you draft an update email to an investor, pause and analyze their psychological state. Are they promotion-focused, driven by the dopamine of potential gains? Or are they prevention-focused, driven by the anxiety of potential losses?
You have to know who you're talking to.
You really do. Rewrite your entire vocabulary to trigger their specific regulatory focus. If they want to go fast, pitch the engine. If they are terrified of crashing, pitch the safety systems.
That is so key. And action number 3, the strategic autonomy surrender. We established that autonomy must be actively constructed and occasionally sacrificed. So identify one specific bottleneck in your operations right now where your stubborn desire for total control is throttling your growth. Intentionally choose to surrender your autonomy in that one area. Delegate it entirely to a trusted team member or an outside agency. You're sacrificing a small perimeter of control to buy back the cognitive bandwidth you need to actually scale the empire.
That is how you translate academic psychology into tangible leverage. The overarching thesis of this entire dive is that your mindset is not some fixed, rigid trait you're just stuck with. It is a highly dynamic, trainable toolkit.
It is dynamic, but I do want to leave you with one final deeply provocative concept from the source material that kind of pushes the boundary of what we consider trainable. There is a twin study referenced by Nicolau and colleagues exploring the origins of entrepreneurial ability. And the data suggests that there is actually a measurable genetic component to opportunity recognition.
Wait, you're saying the ability to look at a chaotic market and spot a viable business idea is actually woven into our DNA?
Partially, yes. Genetics play a statistically significant role in how our brains process market signals, which raises an immense question for the future of venture building. If recognizing the next industry-shifting opportunity is influenced by biology, should founders be actively hacking their co-founder teams at a genetic level?
That is insane.
Right. Should you be selecting partners based purely on cognitive biological diversity to ensure your executive team can collectively spot opportunities that you are biologically blind to?
Wow. That completely reframes how we think about networking and team building. You aren't just looking for someone with a good resume, you're looking for someone with a completely different biological lens on reality. We want to turn this directly over to you, the listener. We have two hyper-focused questions for you to reflect on as you go back to building your business today. Number one, which so-called dark trait, whether it's ADHD symptoms, sheer stubbornness, or relentless obsession, have you secretly weaponized as your greatest superpower?
And question number two, where in your daily operations are you currently bleeding time, energy, and revenue just because you refuse to strategically sacrifice your autonomy?
Let us know in the comments. Take a hard look at those answers. Remember that the frantic, messy reality of your startup isn't a sign that you are failing. It is the literal blueprint of your psychology manifesting in the real world. Stop fighting your nature and start engineering it. Keep building. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if this deep dive rewired your brain today, because we're going to keep bringing you the top 1% of insights to help you build your empire. We will see you on the next deep dive.